Hi there. Welcome to the While You Wait podcast, where it's all about helping women just like you learn about the bladder while you're waiting for your appointment with that specialist. Each week, I'll combine science, medicine, and common sense so you can learn, become empowered, and get started on your journey to dryness. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Boyles, a board-certified urogynecologist. Let's get started. Okay, I'm here today to talk with Jane, and we're going to talk about her personal story with stress incontinence. So stress incontinence is leaking with coughing, sneezing, exercise, and the Bulkamid procedure, which is a urethral bulking procedure. So welcome, Jane. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. So can you tell me what symptoms you had? How did this all get started? What were you dealing with?
Oh, goodness. This is something that affected me very early on. Ever since I was a kid, it would always show itself jumping on the trampoline or getting out and running or straining. Ever since I was young, I was very aware of leaking and just needing to know where the bathroom was, honestly. And so I pretty much coughing, sneezing, being active.
Did you know anyone else who had these issues, or did you feel like you were the only person?
I didn't know anyone else in the sixth grade with this issue, but I did know many people over the age of 60 with this issue.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty common, right? Where everyone
Yeah.
assumes that it's an older person's disease, but lots of kids deal with it. Lots of young women deal with it. Did you seek help for it? Did you just handle it on your own? How did things proceed?
I think maybe what might be common for a lot of people is embarrassment when you're young, especially because you do hear about it with women of a certain age or whatever. And, whenever you're in your 20s, you're just like, this is ridiculous. But whenever you actually do talk to your friends, it is very interesting how many of them are actually having an issue with it, but they just don't talk about it because of the taboo around it. I don't have much of a filter and I kind of like to just shoot it straight. So it was such a big problem for me early on that it just became a regular topic of like kind of conversation amongst my sister and I, and then with my friends. So it was about like that.
Did you try anything before you tried the Bulkamid?
So before that, the people that I had seen told me that I really needed to focus on pelvic floor therapy. And so I didn't get hardcore into that, but I did try out certain things and techniques that they told me. And there was really, I feel like, of course, I don't know because it's not my field, but I was fairly confident that it was going to take something a little bit more invasive than trying Kegels or trying these pelvic floor exercises and stuff like that. I always felt like it was going to take a little bit more than that.
And when you say you didn't get hardcore into it, what do you mean? Like you
So
didn't
it's
do it
like
for long enough, or?
I personally, and it was probably a personal, again, like I said, I've always felt very certain that it was a bigger problem maybe than the average case. And so whenever I finally did start seeking help from a professional, that's whenever they started to throw out, well, let's try this before we try anything really intense. And already, again, initially in that moment in my mind, I was like, I will be amazed if there's a muscle that I can work enough to make this better. So I already went into it,
A little
feeling
skeptical.
like it was going to be in vain a little bit. See, to me, it seemed like what they were telling me was something that I could do after I did something a little bit more impactful. It seemed like that would be a good place to start after I had really kind of solved the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Or not the root of the problem, but like a big part of the problem.
Yeah. So you were thinking it was more maintenance.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay. Did you try anything on your own? Did you try anything over the counter? There's all kinds of things out there.
I did in my early 20s, I believe. I was doing a very physical job and it would just be something that was very frustrating, being that age and having to wear like a pad every day, you know what I mean? And especially being physical. And so, but no, on my own, I wouldn't say that I tried anything that's worth noting. I would do Kegels as much as I could. stuff like that. But like I said, it just always seemed like it was going to take a little bit more than working a muscle to kind of really curve the issue.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I'm 30.
You're 30. Yeah, which is
Mhm.
super young to be dealing with this. Or I'm sure it feels super young to be dealing with it. It definitely is not that
I would
young.
say that it is super young and it feels super young. So you're
Yeah.
not wrong.
So, what different procedures did you consider? Did you only consider urethral bulking? Did you think about doing other things?
So actually through the barbershop that I work at, we have a client that comes in on a regular basis. And at the time he was selling like vaginal mesh and stuff like that. So we would always get to talking a little bit. And he told me about a buddy of his, Dr. Parnell. And I had only really talked to this client, this customer about it because he was, very well versed and it wasn't weird talking about it or anything. And he's actually the one that recommended I talk to Dr. Parnell because he um, said that he was fairly certain that there was a pretty non-invasive procedure or something like that that I could do to kind of again curve the issue. And so no, I had never really heard of any. I assumed there were procedures. I didn't know of any specifically until I saw my urologist, and he kind of talked me through it a little bit. And Bulkamid, as soon as he mentioned it, it was like as he was explaining how it all works, it just really seemed like it just made sense for what my body needed, you know?
Okay. So, did you, once you decided to go ahead with the Bulkamid, did you have it done in the office or did you have it done in a surgery center or the operating room?
It was, I guess technically it was a surgery center. But it was very, I don't know. I've had a couple of procedures and like one major surgery in my life. So I'm not super like, I don't get very nervous about it, but it really was kind of like a non big deal. You know what I mean? You do
Yeah.
go into the surgery center and you do all that, but it did not feel as big of a deal as where I was at to get it done, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. So, but you did have a little bit of anesthesia.
Oh yes, 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 for sure, for sure.
Yeah. So you describe it as kind of a non-procedure. So you get there, what happened? Walk me through it.
So I got there and they got me changed into my gown and everything, feeling very fancy, very confident.
Very fancy, yeah.
And
They're very
and
nice.
so I know I wanted to take the time. But I got in there and I got changed, and they kind of just came in and walked me through. Each person kind of does their rounds. It's got playing some part in it. They stop by to talk to you. Everyone was so friendly, and everyone was just very much like just being very reassuring of like, this is no big deal. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be a great thing. And so for me, getting prepared for it, I was not very nervous. Um, Whenever they pushed me to the back, I was informed after the procedure because it wasn't full anesthesia or anything like that. My understanding is that it's just kind of enough to like keep you out of it and everything, and you don't remember much afterwards. And I was told that I was very chatty throughout the procedure, so be careful, be careful.
Yeah.
But but no, it was very simple. We got back in the room. I situated myself on the table. We were all just shooting the breeze and just kind of like having like a morning banter. And then, next thing I know, it gets a little cloudy, a little foggy, and I'm like in the recovery space. You know what I mean? It's very quick.
How long did it take, do you think?
I feel like it could not have been more than 30 minutes.
Yeah. Did you have any pain afterwards?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of discomfort whenever I would pee. It would kind of be like you could feel maybe where they had done the injections in there a little bit. Definitely not unmanageable. Definitely not. It was not too much, but or I did have some burning sensation, and I could tell where it was. It was where he had put the
Yeah.
solution there.
I think that's pretty common. How long did that
Yeah, it
last for
was.
you?
I'm sorry.
How long did that last?
I think that only lasted. Honestly, I think it lasted maybe 4 to 5 days, but I mean, the first 2 days were definitely the most intense, and like I said, at its most intense, it wasn't really anything to write home about, but it was
Yeah.
pretty much all those little sensations were pretty much wrapped up by the
Yeah.
5-day mark.
So you didn't feel, you didn't have to take any pain medication?
I think maybe that first day,
Yeah.
I might have taken, like, a couple of ibuprofen, maybe like a Tylenol or something, but that was mostly just to kinda knock the edge off of it and kinda coast through it. It wasn't like I need Tylenol, I need ibuprofen. It
Yeah.
was like, that would be nice. That would just take that little hard edge off of it.
Was it hard for you to pee right after the procedure? Did you have any difficulty?
Kind of. It wasn't so much difficulty as it is, growing up with incontinence and not having any control of your bladder. You're kind of used to before your butt hits the seat, the pee hits the water, you know what I mean? And so it was a very, very different for me to be sitting down and just kind of like, wow, where is it? It's taking it a second.
Yeah.
And he told me that would, it might take a second or whatever. So I wasn't nervous or anything, but I did sit down and it did take just a second to be able to like, I guess, figure out how to like really relax those muscles
Yeah.
because they are kind of, they're
Yeah.
done pretty tight.
It's such a habit, right? The way you pee is just a habit and it just feels different. And that
Well, it's
is odd.
extremely weird to go from pretty much every experience with that in the past ever since I was a child was kind of a, oh, gotta get there, gotta get there. And it it was a very odd sensation at I think at that time I just turned 30. So it was a very odd sensation to sit down and nothing happen when you know that you needed to. And it takes it a second. I was like, I'd prefer it take a second over that any day.
So how long were you in the recovery room before you went home? I'm just wondering how long the whole procedure took.
It wasn't that long. Maybe an hour. I had my wife there with me. She drove me afterwards. So I think that that's like a general thing. Everyone
It
that
is,
goes
yeah.
to have someone drive them afterwards. But I really, I think in total we were there for under 2 hours total, if not like an hour and a half, like including like getting there, getting situated, doing the procedure, waking up, and being discharged or
Yeah.
released, however that worked.
So, and you said you're a barber. How much time did you take off of work? Because that's a pretty physical job. Or did you not take any time off of work?
Honestly, just because I have full control over my schedule, I went ahead and marked the following day out. But if I was in a position to where I really couldn't or didn't need to miss work, I could have totally gone to work. I would have taken some Tylenol or something like that. But honestly, I felt like I could, if I had to, I could have gone back the next day. But comfortably, I went back 2 days later.
Okay. Okay. So you go through this non-procedure and now what? What's happened to your symptoms?
It's it's absolutely wild. So, like I said, for the first little bit, it kind of takes a second to like learn how to go to the restroom and like sit down and like relax enough to where, you can kind of just get there. Um, but so the symptoms after the procedure were really kind of non-existent. I went from like wearing a pad a day to like I don't wear pads anymore. I don't buy them, which for me is a huge deal since literally having to wear them since middle school for this issue. And so it. I'm not trying to sound dramatic, but it was very much a lifestyle changer for me. It was a game changer for me because uh, you want to go hiking, you want to go do things that cause you to kind of exert, and in the past, it's just I held myself back so much just from the discomfort I know would follow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So afterwards, it was pretty, as far as symptoms, I could cough, sneeze. I picked up heavy things and not strained, but like, it took a little bit of effort. And it kind of occurred to me after I did a couple of things. I was just like, wow, before that would have been, I'd be having to deal with something right now. And like, this is kind of, I just feel free, freer in a way. You know what I mean?
Do you feel like you're more active? Do you feel like you're doing more things because you don't have to worry about this anymore?
Yes, a little bit more active this summer is gonna be the real, teller for everything, because in the past, again, it's just like you just wanna it's just hot, you wanna be active, but you just feel gross, you know what I mean? Um, yeah, definitely been a little bit more active. I plan on being more active this summer. Um, it has definitely been a game changer for movement, without a
So,
doubt.
yeah, I just want to ask you about one other thing that you just said, because I think it's something that so many women feel. So you said, before this, you kind of felt gross. Um,
Mhm.
do you feel better about yourself? Because I think there are a lot of, self-confidence and body image issues, even for the most self-confident women when they're dealing with these issues.
For me, I would definitely say my self-confidence has grown leaps and bounds. You kinda don't realize the residual shame or something that you might be holding on to, because it's like when I was younger, I was very embarrassed by it. As I get older, I was like, "Well, this clearly is not going anywhere, and I don't know how to keep a secret, so I'm not gonna, like, stay locked up about it." But it's like, there is that period of time where there's just a lot of embarrassment, a lot of shame about it. And so what has really struck me now is that that's something I didn't anticipate changing so much, in addition to being able to do more or whatever. But the way that I felt as far as self-confidence towards myself was like, I knew it was gonna improve, but I didn't know that it was gonna be one of the main things that I got out of this procedure.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I'm so happy for you. I mean,
Thank you.
I think that's something that we see all the time. And, physicians who do this work, I mean, this is why we do it because it just makes such a huge difference for people. But it's just
Right.
so amazing for you to be able to, verbalize that and say, yeah, this impacted just so many,
Hmm.
different parts of my life. I mean, I always tell people that you want your pelvis to work and you don't want to have to think about it. And then when that happens, it's super freeing for you. Um,
Well, I wanted to say this really quick. That was another thing that was so huge, is that also, in addition to the like subconscious like shame that might be lingering, is also not fully realizing how it does kind of dictate your day to day, and it really does impact your life to the point that like that's something that eventually it's just a part of your day where you're just stressing about it all the time. And I knew I was stressing about it, but it wasn't until after the procedure that I realized that I was actually kind of, which it sounds so obvious now, but mental health wise, so like that was actually really doing a number on me more than I realized. And so that was like something that was very surprising and relieving after the fact, was to realize like I don't just have a constant tingle of anxiety going through me throughout the day, to be so self-aware, so aware of my surroundings. What am I going to be doing when I get there? So I just wanted to throw that out there.
yeah, I think you put that so well, right? I mean, I think that's definitely true. And then you feel like you just have a lot more bandwidth to deal with other things.
I
Um,
feel like a 30-year-old now.
how long ago did you have the procedure?
I do believe it was August. I think it was late August of 2023.
Okay, so about 9 months. Do you feel like it's wearing off at all?
I do, just a little bit, but I was told that there was a chance that I would need to come back in for some sort of follow up to kind of top it off a little bit.
Yep.
I plan on doing that. Life has been so wild, but I'm gonna do that this year. Um, so it has worn off just a little bit. I would say that some of the leaking, I wouldn't say, it's just kind of occasional. It's just kind of there, but it's one of those things where I've just experienced such relief from the original procedure that I have the utmost confidence in my doctor and the procedure itself, that getting it topped off is gonna do the trick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm.
And I was also told about doing a follow up like that is even less of a ordeal than the initial procedure, which again was not an ordeal at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you've had amazing results. Is there anything that you didn't like about it? Is there anything you wish was different?
I really don't think so because I mean, it's like, also, I just struggled with it for so long that the thought of like having like a thought of like how I wish it was different just seems so foreign because it's like it just like it solves so much for me, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
far as what I wish was different, I really can't even say that there is anything. It's, I mean, how much easier can you want it to be? Initially, doctors were telling me that I would need to see a pelvic floor therapist X amount of times a week or every so many weeks, telling me all these exercises, giving me these pamphlets, things to research, which, you know, that's all good. That's all like rich information. But I always felt like I would need a little bit more. And so to literally go put on a comfy gown, lay in a bed, have people wait on you hand and foot, get your Sprite, and then to go lay down, have that done. Like I said, I do believe it was like about 30 minutes or less. And then to wake up and to your lifestyle changes. I mean, I don't want anything to be different. I understand I've got to get it topped off, but I'm like not complaining.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sounds like you've had an amazing change, right? Which is, you know, what we see all of the time. It doesn't always last. Sometimes you have to top things off, and that's okay.
Mhm.
You know, usually we start with a very standard dose because you can always add more, but you can't really take it
Mhm.
away, and then just kind of see how you do. I mean, you never want to
Mhm.
do too much.
Because I'm sure some people might hear that and be like, I'd rather just go ahead and go for it than to risk having to do a follow up. Um, I can see. So one of the things that he told me is that doing too much too soon, it could lead to like the opposite problem of where you can't go to the bathroom, you can't urinate. And so I just also wanted to throw that out there as well that
Yeah.
I'm glad that he reined it in. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, so it doesn't feel like any sort of hassle to go back for the follow-up, which he
Well,
said that also could be done outside of the surgery center. So, I
yeah.
mean,
And I think I mean everybody wants everything to be perfect, right? But and when you're leaking, it's hard to imagine the opposite, not being able to empty, right? But anything we
mhm,
do to treat leaking can always make it harder to empty, and so you have to be careful, right, to get that perfect balance.
yeah,
Well, I am so happy for you. I hope you have a great summer. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think it's amazing when women share their stories, especially younger women, right? Because there is a degree of shame about it. But there are so many people who are suffering with this. And I think
absolutely.
that you just did such an amazing job of talking about your symptoms and how what is better for you at this point.
I appreciate that very much. I will say that it's being trying to forgive yourself for something that's not your fault is a big part of it. And then also like talking to friends about it because virtually every other person around us is experiencing it, but we feel like we've got the spotlight on us. You know what I mean? Yeah. No, it's just awesome. It's awesome to be able to lose that mindset, lose that
Yeah.
weight that you carry every day.
It is a mindset, right? And I think sharing things and talking about things is quite liberating for most of us,
Mhm.
but it's hard to do, right? Because you feel like you're the only one and you're so worried about embarrassment and, you know, what people might think of you and all of those
Mhm.
things. But it's really, I mean, for you, especially since you've had this since you were a child, it's a structural defect, right? It's part of your body
Mhm.
that's just not working perfectly. It's never quite worked perfectly for you. There shouldn't be any shame in that, right? I mean, it's
Mhm.
like tearing an ACL, right? Which people do all the time and we talk
Yeah,
about, and there's no shame there. So, yeah, it's just a structural defect, right? That you had fixed.
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So enjoy your summer and thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was great chatting with you.
Thanks for listening. If you want more information about me or my online work, check out my website at www.thewomensbladderdoctor.com.